Okay guys, hopefully I'm doing this right now because about a couple of minutes ago I was trying to do a test recording, and as I said on the last live stream, I'm a technology idiot, and I think accidentally I put the live stream live instead of doing a test recording. But I did disclose that I am a technology idiot. So today I wanted to do a live stream for you guys because I have a story to share with you guys, but before I do that, just want to tell you guys that towards the end of this live stream here, I will be answering listeners' questions and answers, but this is not financial advice. This is just my opinion. This is for information and educational purposes only. Disclaimer. Hashtag disclaimer. Okay? There's people out there that are saying, I'm not putting enough disclaimers up. Okay, there's a disclaimer on my website. There's disclaimers in the information section of the videos. With that being said, first let's talk about a couple global macro topics, and then I'll share a crazy story that's been going on in my life since Thursday, August 9th in the morning. So the main reason I'm doing this live stream right now is the dollar index. The dollar is doing a lot of damage as a global wrecking ball to emerging markets, and it's causing a lot of problems. So right now, the dollar index, we're recording this on Friday, August 17th at just after 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And let me pull up my Yahoo Finance really quick. Dollar index is at 96.11. So it's had a little bit of a correction here. And we'll have to see. I think that it's probably in the near future, barring some type of intervention, probably going to be testing the 100 overhead resistance levels. It will start to do even more damage if it goes to 100 or higher, even more damage. Are you guys responding in chat? How many people are watching this right now? Okay, well, I think this is right so far. I think we're doing things right now. So I want to share this story. I don't know. It says only 13 people are watching this, but I'm sure that at least 1,000 people will listen and see this video. We will talk about other investing topics later in the short live stream here, including the gold mining industry based on the gold price, and also why I think, despite Walmart having record sales, it's good news but not great news. So Walmart had the best sales it's ever had this past quarter in over 10 years. So from a certain perspective, that's the blue collar jobs, they are getting raised, so that's good. But there's still not an enormous amount of high paying full-time jobs yet. And if you're going from 30,000 to 35 or 40,000, it's a big increase, but still the economy is not creating an enormous amount of high-paying full-time jobs yet. Okay, so I will talk about the global economy and answer your guys' questions later in this live stream, but I wanted to share this story out there because it's freaking crazy, and my life really has been a roller coaster for the last 10 years, ups and downs, and on Thursday, it's just freaking nuts what happened. So I was getting dressed on Thursday morning, Thursday, August 9th, and getting ready to go walk my dogs. And there were 2 Virginia State Securities investigators suits badges outside my house. And freaking nuts, man. So they were like, we're not leaving until we speak to you. I have really serious health problems, so I'm not, in the mornings are very, very difficult for me. I have 5 or 6 really, really serious health problems. I'm doing a little bit better with my health, but still very serious. It's very expensive for me to eat healthier foods and medications and supplements and stuff. But anyway, though, they were talking about how someone in the state of Virginia had reported me for being an illegal and unregistered financial advisor the last 2 years. What? I was like, what? And so they had sent me a formal letter end of July. So it was dated July 27th, and I responded a couple days later when I got it by email. And they were accusing me of being like this big shot, illegal, unregistered financial advisor and giving financial advice to all these clients the last 2 years. And I was like, I emailed the guy back. I was like, with respect, what the hell are you talking about? The only way that Wall Street for Main Street has made money for years now is from, paid advertisers, Google AdWords revenues, which are less and less now despite my channel being larger than 2 years ago. Google's basically siphoned off more of my ad revenue because so they can report larger earnings to shareholders, and made it to the point where really no one can earn a living from doing content. Really no one, no matter how big your channel is. I mean, I have friends, they won't go public with this, but they're who used to make $100,000 or more per year in their YouTube channel, and it's been taken down more than 90%. They don't want to talk about their problems publicly like this. But you know what, guys? I need to bring awareness to this. I need to talk about this. This will be therapeutic. There's some things I don't want to talk about maybe with the story, but I'm going to be as honest and candid as I can, because I think it's cathartic and therapeutic. And to be honest, like last week, Thursday and Friday, I almost had a heart attack. I was having panic attacks, heart attacks. So they grilled me. They wouldn't leave. They drove up here from Richmond, the state capital of Virginia. They wouldn't leave, even though they were asked. And so they demanded to speak to me for 45 minutes, and they grilled me really, really hard. And they were telling me that, someone reported my YouTube channel and that they were going to try to take down all the videos. They were going to force me to. But they said if I volunteered, then I might not get, if I self-censored myself and or volunteered to take down all the videos and channels and stop doing any of the podcasts, that they may go easy on me and I might not get any charges or anything. And so, I basically was like, and then they asked, this whole, I can't talk about all the details of the interrogation, but it was just really, really weird. They wanted a list of all the Patreon contributors that I have, and most of you guys don't even use your real names. And I told them, I asked them during this interrogation, why do you want a list of my Patreon contributors? I was like, most of them don't even use their real names. They only give me $1 to $5 per month. Most of the people bitch and complain that whenever I ask for any money at all. And it's really, it doesn't even at this point with my Patreon, it doesn't even cover my monthly audio editing budget. And they actually responded to me. I was shocked. They actually gave me a candid answer. They said, we're going to email them and we're going to ask them if you've been trying to sell them financial advice and making all this money that you didn't declare to the government. It was just ridiculous. So, you know what, guys, I've been really, since then, this interrogation stuff, I've been contacting lawyers. I've emailed over 24 of them. And, the story as I was explaining to them with the formal letter and the interrogation and stuff, and they were saying that basically that all of my videos, all 900 plus of them, whether there's disclaimers on my website, very thorough ones, there's disclaimers in the information section of my videos, even my guests, a lot of them are really good professionals, well-respected people, experts, people have been on CNBC and Bloomberg, some of them have been banned on there, like you have Dr. Mark Faber and Fred Hickey, who have been banned from the Barron's Roundtable for not being bullish enough permabulls on stocks. And they pre-qualify. I don't even ask them. So I just ask the questions in a lot of cases. I don't know how they're going to respond to their answers. And they pre-qualify their answers that, this is just my opinion. It's not financial advice. And the investigators were telling me during the interrogation that doesn't matter and they're going to get me. And so, I have really, like I said, I have really bad health problems. I have financial problems because the channel, there's been huge problems with trying to get a paid advertiser because the growth of my YouTube channel is down. And a lot of you guys, I thought some of the products were pretty good, but many of you guys don't think so. But because the growth of my channel has slowed so much, a lot of paid advertisers are only willing to try things out for one to 3 months. And then they cancel because they're not. I've been trying to get long-term paid advertising contracts so people will grow with me, but they expect immediate results. And then when they don't get immediate results, they cancel after 1 to 3 months. My life's been a roller coaster up and down for a long time now. And so I was trying to, get a lawyer because they were asking for names and emails and email addresses and customers. And I was going to fight them on this. I was going to fight them on this. Guys, you guys know this, my longtime listeners, that I've been doing this for 8 years, blood, sweat, and tears, putting everything I can into this channel, the content. You can go back and watch the original videos and the interviews. They were garbage. I've overcome social anxiety disorder. I had a really bad stutter growing up. You can't tell anymore because I've forced myself to practice and get better and just, master the material. I've overcome a lot just to get this far. It's been a pretty shitty life for me. But good news though, guys, is that the investigation, they were demanding that I was going to have to hand over everything by August 24th, so next Friday, or I was facing formal charges. And they were pretty serious, big fines, potential criminal court, criminal charges. And I'm sorry, I'm a little teary-eyed. It's pretty emotional about this. But there's good news. I got an email a little over an hour ago, and thank God they've looked in. I was brutally honest with them that I didn't make really any money recently off the channel because they thought that I was this, big shot financial advisor and wasn't registering with the state of Virginia and was hiding income. It's just not true. And they looked into this because I was honest with them, and thank God the investigation's over and I've been cleared. So, but the last week or so has just been incredibly bad, incredibly difficult, incredibly stressful. I've been sending out emails. The lawyers around here, the local lawyers, they thought I was joking. A lot of them, I emailed over 24 of them. I emailed over 24 lawyers and, explaining to them a summary of the case and some of the things that happened. We think we have reason to believe, we're not 100% sure, but we think there was a disgruntled podcast listener that I may in the past have been friends with locally. And he already owned an enormous junior mining stock portfolio. I can't name his name, but he gambled on a lot of junior mining stocks. And he has a business background with an accounting degree and other stuff. And rather than take personal responsibility for his losses, he's blaming us unfairly. So really, really, really nuts, guys. It's been a crazy last 7 or 8 days. Really, really crazy. I was willing to, I don't know if I was actually going to get a lawyer in time by August 24th, but I was willing to defend myself. I did go to law school for a semester, and I'm not a moron, but you know what they say about people defending yourself, you're only as good as your lawyer. With the moron joke, I think I'm botching it. Anyways, though, thankfully I don't have to. It's for now, that's done. But yeah, it's been freaking nuts. It's been freaking nuts. I was in contact with Doug Casey and Jeff Dice over at the Mises Institute. This was going to be a free speech issue, and I was going to do a media blitz. I was going to get interviewed by Paul Joseph Watson over at InfoWars, Rebel Media. I was starting to book the interviews. I reached out to Stefan Molyneux. I was going to talk about it, how I was going to be willing to go to prison for you guys to keep doing the podcast, because they told me, they were hinting that if I shut it down, that they might go easy on me. Okay, let me call Saul. I don't need a lawyer now, thank God. As of right now, I don't need a lawyer. Adam. Adam, it's good to see you, buddy. I remember you back in the day, man. It's good to see you. Yep. They're attacking truth tellers. So, the lawyers I contacted, it was going to be a god enormous mess. I didn't have the money. I was going to give them $500 or $1,000, what little savings I had left, and they told me it wasn't going to be enough. Some of them never responded to emails. I think the investigators intentionally at some point realized that most of the lawyers were on vacation and they were trying to get this wrapped up. Oh, thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. No. I don't want to make a complaint now. I don't want to make a complaint. I'm going to be as thorough as I can with the disclaimers. And I'm going to give my opinions. I'm going to try to tell you guys the truth as I see it. I mean, I've been blacklisted, guys, from the financial industry for a long time now. I have a lot of skills, a lot of qualifications, a couple years experience in the financial industry, different jobs. And, at this point, I would love a halfway decent job in the financial industry just to pay my bills for a day job so I can build this on the side. Or raise money for my educational technology company. Things just haven't worked out. It's been really unfortunate. This year alone, there's been 3 bad business deals. Including a signed contract with a paid advertiser, big company. You guys know the name. If I had the money, I'd fucking sue them. What they did is one of the most unprofessional people in their digital marketing department I've ever dealt with in my whole goddamn life. One of the most unprofessional people. Took months to get a deal done. Signed paid advertising deal. It's in writing. They have a copy of the contract. And then they just decided they're not going to fulfill it. And I would have covered all my audio editing costs. If I had more money, I would sue them. So Wall Street for Main Street, guys, in the last week was almost shut down. I didn't want to shut it down, but things might have went to trial. But thankfully, the investigation is closed. Thank God. I really could not have taken any more bad news. I was having like almost a heart attack last week on Thursday and Friday, panic attacks. And, you know, I was emailing lawyers, and I was asking, reaching out to my contacts list about what I should do. Because this was going to turn into a free speech issue. Because there's disclaimers everywhere, guys. And they were saying that the disclaimers didn't matter. Very, very frustrating. Okay, so let me check my notes here for what other stuff I wanted to talk about. Okay, so there are more details about the legal case. The case is closed now. The lawyers were not going to help me. It looked like that they thought that I couldn't pay them enough money. The local ones wanted thousands of dollars to even consider this. No one was going to take it pro bono. I'd reached out, emailed dozens of them. And, you know, it looked like either I was going to have to get a public defender, or what I was going to also planning on doing was a legal defense fund blitz, like a media blitz with like reaching out to larger media platforms than me and doing a Wall Street for Main Street legal defense fund. As of right now, it looks like I'm not going to have to do that, but it was bad at some point. And guys, I even had to talk to Mo and John, because they were threatening to, you know, go back years, and they closed the investigation down so I could talk about this. But I'm not on the best of terms with Mo anymore, and John and I are friendly, but we don't talk that much. And so like I had to talk to them for stuff too. This was difficult stuff the last like 7 or 8 days. I'm just glad it's over, thank God. Okay, so let me look. I'm kind of emotional right now. I'm not really focusing too well. So let me just look at some of your questions here that you put in the chat, and let me see if we could talk with that for the rest. I've spent about 16 minutes of your time. We could talk about, you know, the different markets. The dollar index, you got to watch the dollar index. The dollar index is key. For gold miners, I did want to talk about gold miners. This is only my opinion. So let me pull up Kitco really quick. We're at 1182 gold and 1477 silver as of right now. For the lower cost primary gold and silver miners, they're okay. They can tread water. They have clean balance sheets. They've sold off what they would call non-core assets to raise cash. The mining industry has been in fight or flight mode, a lot of them, for the last 7 years. So whether or not you agree with me that gold and silver have been in a paper bear market for 7 years, the mining industry, the primary gold and silver miners, have been in a bear market for 7 years. So they've been in cost-cutting mode, slashing everything to the bone for 7 years now. I don't know how much more cost the miners can cut without the CEOs and the vice presidents and those guys in SG&A drastically taking pay cuts. But a lot of those guys who run mining companies are honestly not rich. So they really can't take too much pay cuts, because a lot of those guys who run those companies, they do have, some of them do have cushy jobs, but a lot of those guys are not rich before they started working for those companies. So I'm not sure how much pay cuts those guys are going to be able to take. There's really not much more. I did, as you guys know, short videos on this, outlining that the mining industry, the margins were not as good as it claimed. We're going to find this out in the Q3 numbers. The Q2 numbers for a lot of primary gold miners were not that good. I think the one where Eric Sprott is chairman of, Kirkland Lake, they had good numbers, but a lot of the larger gold miners were disappointing for their Q2 numbers. And their Q1 numbers, when the oil prices were lower and the metals prices were higher, their margins and their overall free cash flow and stuff like that were nowhere near as good as a lot of people were expecting, given what they claimed their costs were. So Q3, in my opinion, there's a lot of people saying you're too bearish, Jason. But, you know, hopefully metals prices will rise or oil prices will fall, or some combination of the two. Right now for the crude oil markets, we're at WTI crude at just under $66 a barrel. Brent crude's just under $82 a barrel at $71.84. So this is a situation now where oil prices have not come down a lot and metals prices have. And so for a lot of the miners, their margins are not going to be robust. Now, there's some miners like Yamana Gold that has online the Cerro Moro gold and silver mine, which is high grade and fairly low cost. And that's going to help Yamana Gold clean up their balance sheet, especially because I think their gold and silver prices are in Argentinian pesos before they report back. So they're getting kind of a benefit of the weak currency there with low labor costs and higher metals prices there. And that's a quality mine too, the Cerro Moro gold and silver. So eventually, if there's no operating problems there, Yamana should their balance sheet should clean up, and they should generate more free cash flow with that mine. And in turn, Sandstorm Gold with their silver stream on the Yamana gold mine should improve Sandstorm Gold's revenue. Sandstorm Gold's probably going to have like around a 20% increase in revenue by the end of January, with the Cerro Moro silver stream coming online, and also the restart of the Arizona gold mine, the royalty that Sandstorm Gold has on it from Equinox Gold. That's the company that Ross Beatty is very, very bullish on. He's a chairman of. Put a lot of his own money into there. And that mine is being reconstructed now. And they're having a lot of exploration successes underground too. So, I think there's been an overreaction with Sandstorm Gold with the Turkey news, but operationally that mine is still moving forward. The permits, in fact, like with a lot of people in Turkey buying gold, I could see that the Turkish government may want to buy the gold from the Hot Maden mine in Turkey faster, and they may accelerate the permits even faster. But the market's not pricing that in. Okay, so I think the gold and silver miners, at some point more bad news will be priced in, but the miners really, the lower cost ones, so this is not financial advice, just my opinion, your lower cost primary silver miners, your Pan American silvers, your First Majestic silvers, Fortuna's I think fairly low cost. Those guys can handle lower prices better than some of the other high cost ones. So the higher cost silver miners are your Heclas, your Coeur d'Alenes, your silver. Well, it's not silver standard anymore; it's SSR. But I've addressed this on a lot of videos in the past. Had those miners not bought gold mines, their margins would be even worse. Those higher cost miners, your Heclas, your Coeur d'Alenes, your SSR resources, their primary silver mines may be running at losses now. And the funny thing is, you would think in a free market that the miners would shut off the mines if they're running them at a loss, but that's not the case, because a lot of the miners either have bad balance sheets or too much debt. And so if you have debt that's due or you have a bad balance sheet, you can't shut off the mine because you're risking bankruptcy then. So the miners are willing to run those mines at a loss just for the cash flow, just to tread a little bit more water to hope that metals prices rebound. But I don't think the gold industry can take that much. Gold and silver industry, they've cut costs to the bone. If the gold price were to get close to 1,000 or the silver price were to get to $13 or less, you'd be looking at bankruptcies within a couple quarters. Not immediately, because there's assets that the miners could maybe sell, some of them. Although this is just a case study with Coeur d'Alene, they sold like their royalty and stream portfolio is pretty small. I think they sold it for like $70 million in cash. Part of it to like Metalla, which was backed by Porter Stansberry and a few of his employees. So, they during this bear market the last couple of years, the mining companies that are higher cost, that are considered like mid-tiers or they're marginal, they don't run a low-cost operation, they have had to sell off a lot of their assets, but they just don't really have that many more assets to sell. Let me look at the comment section here. They are attacking truth tellers. They are attacking truth tellers. I should easily have a investment analyst job, like hedge fund research or paid investment newsletter writer. I'm a good writer and researcher, and I know a ton of different investing methodologies. I know more than most hedge fund managers. But if you Google my name, you see all this content on the internet, and it's for regular people. If you're not a libertarian, it's very, very controversial. And a lot of Wall Street is hardcore Democrat anyway. So if they see some of the titles and topics I've talked about, they'll just say next. Sorry, I'm mumbling here. I'm trying to read this. We're with you. Hang in there. We're all going through crazy stuff right now. Thank you, Anne. I appreciate that. Well, just go private. I'm sure funding's secured. Ben Firthy. Ben, I would love to go private. I actually have a full business plan for a really quality educational technology company. It would offer a full and comprehensive financial education for people rather than going to business school or economic school at a medium or lower level college or community college and stuff. And it would be an affordable price from very successful people. The technology is available to do this and offer it at a reasonable price. And unfortunately, I need new business partners to pitch investors. And I almost had 2 new business partners starting in November and through March, and it didn't work out because they didn't keep their word. I won't go into detail anymore, but they didn't do what they said. And unfortunately, that's been a lot of my... I've had a lot of business deals for years now blow up in my face that I've worked very, very hard on, that I thought were going to go through. I thought 3 business deals were going to go through this year, and I thought I was going to make a reasonable living, and they all blew up in my face. It's just been... I'm beyond frustrated. Very, very angry. Sorry, I'm being honest. Let me look at some more of the comments. Why, Jonathan Whiting, why is there not yet a YouTube for people who don't believe in censorship? There are some competing ones. There's Steemit and there's DTube, and I think there's BitChute. The problem with these things is they're small. They're small. So they are maybe long-term, years from now, a solution, but they're such small audiences that the really big content creators, I think there's also Gab, but the really big content creators, they're going to make like $10 or $20 on there if they post their content. So you work like some of the research and stuff and the interviews. I mean, it takes me my audio editor, the budget, like it's $600 a month to do the audio editing the right way. And now with my Patreon and my Google AdWords revenues, I'm not even making that. And I'm sure there's other content creators that in the past they were making good money and now it's almost nothing. So I don't know. I think this is being done intentional. So they're YouTube and some of these other guys like, okay, you can make your videos. And remember, I was bringing up that this could have been a free speech issue because I never violated YouTube's terms of service. I don't have any strikes against me. Now, I don't. YouTube has siphoned off tons of my advertising revenue the last couple years, and they've drastically slowed the growth of my channel. But they never gave me strikes, and they never demonetize. They've never demonetized my videos across the board. Like I brought this up. I'm not sure if the Ron Paul Liberty Report talks about this anymore, but they should be making a couple $100,000 per year in ad revenues, Google AdWords revenues off their YouTube channel so big. And all of their videos are demonetized before they even publicly release them. So Ron Paul is paying... Oh, and the Ron Paul conference is tomorrow, so I'm excited about that. So that'll be fun around here. That's like a 30-minute drive for me, so I'm going tomorrow. If you guys are going to the Ron Paul Institute conference tomorrow, holler at me. You can give me a hug. Or a handshake. It's been a long week. It's been a long week. There's been a lot of long weeks, but this one was one of the worst. But thank you God that this is over with for now. Thank you God. Okay, let me read some more comments. Take a deep breath. Everything is going to work out. That's the only reason I've gotten so far. I mean, there's been a lot of bad stuff I won't talk about with my health problems and other stuff over years now. I actually almost died in 2015. My liver was almost totally failing. And so I could barely get out of bed some days. It was that bad. I have liver disease now, but I'm better. I'm a lot better than I was a couple years ago, but I was bad. I was actually releasing videos every day. Sometimes I was doing 2 videos a day, 3 videos a day. I was really trying to push things over the hump to get that paid advertiser, to grow my channel, to monetize. Because, I was applying to lots of jobs too, and I just wasn't hearing back. And I was like, you know what? If I put the final effort in, I could make, a decent living off my channel. This was 2015-ish, and it just didn't happen. And I got sick. I wasn't working out as much as I should. I wasn't eating as healthy. And with the stress, I was drinking. I was drinking more than I should have at my age. In college, I did party a lot. I partied a lot in college, but, I don't do that stuff anymore. What is the US dollar wrecking ball? Start the show from Ben. Well, I was just going to talk about how the US dollar rally since March from 88, lows of 88, it bounced off support levels. And since March, it's rallied hard from 88 up to 96. I did briefly touch on that. The US dollar is what's causing a lot of problems. Not only is it the interest rate hikes that the Fed has done, but it's mostly the dollar. And if you talk to hedge fund managers that aren't libertarian ones or Austrian school, they'll say, "Oh, it's a dollar shortage. It's a dollar shortage." Everyone, making it like it's someone else's fault. But in my opinion, these politicians and bankers in other countries, in emerging markets, and foreign central banks and regular foreign banks, the commercial banks, and foreign corporations, they were betting that the dollar would be weak and that their currency would be strong. And they were only thinking about the short-term myopia and that they could pay back all their dollar-denominated debt in cheaper dollars. And so for a while, that may have worked. So for a couple years ago, when the dollar was weak from, I think, January 2017 up until March of this year, the dollar was weak. The dollar went down on the dollar index from 102 down to, I think, 88. So that thesis that the foreign central banks and the politicians in emerging markets were betting that they could pay off their debt in cheaper dollars, that was working. But the problem is that, go back through financial history. You don't hear a lot of people talk about this anymore, especially on CNBC or Bloomberg. That going back through financial history, every time the dollar has had a big rally, it's caused like some of these big problems where there needed to be bank bailouts and there's counterparty risk, whether it was the Asian tiger crisis or the Mexican tequila crisis. And initially those currency swaps, they started off really small. One of the best things from the Money Bubble book with James Turk and John Rubino was James Turk talking about his experiences as an investment banker and going through those crises and dealing with them. And he was talking about the currency swaps that the Fed would give out to foreign central banks back then during those crises from 10, 20, 30 years ago, and how, initially those currency swaps for emergency bank bailouts to save American banks and European banks from the bad debts that they were holding in Mexico or Asia and bad counterparty risk, there were covert bailouts. Initially, those currency swaps, backdoor bailouts, covert QE, were only $1 billion or $2 billion or, $5 billion or 10. They were small. But those things over the last 20 or 30 years, because we're in a global credit Ponzi scheme in all these different global economies, the size of the credit markets and the junk debt, the junk bond debt, it's gone exponential. Tia Bia Mama, so sorry about your problems. Thank you. I appreciate it. You do. Hey guys, I've seen a lot of stuff on energy and oil related, I think you're meant, to the economy and gold production, but what is more likely, higher or lower oil prices in the next crash? Well, at this, so you do, in my opinion, at this oil price, this is an oil price where a good amount of shale oil producers can make a little bit of free cash flow or at least pay off their debt and roll that forward and either maintain production levels or increase them. So maybe not necessarily generate a ton of free cash flow at current prices, but they can at least grow revenues without worrying about bankruptcy and bloated balance sheets with too much debt and things like that. So I've talked about this in short videos and some of my interviews over the last couple of months with some of the oil experts. And as some of you guys may remember, I was an oil analyst for a while. At some point, if the oil price either stays at these levels and or goes higher, there will be more oil supply coming online. President Trump is trying to get more oil production brought online from the Saudis and OPEC, and that's because he is worried about his demographic, his voter base, the pro-Trump Republicans, that if they are hurt at the gasoline pump, that they will blame the Republicans. And he knows that his policies with the tax cuts and the tariffs and the other stuff he's doing, that in the longer term, that they're going to force higher costs into the global supply chain. And that's with the budget deficits, etc. And Trump doesn't want a stronger dollar, neither does his Treasury Secretary. And that at some point is going to mean worse stagflation. So at some point in the oil markets, depending upon the oil price, if the oil price stays at these levels or goes higher, there will be a lot more supply brought online. And that could either, if there's too much supply, that could crash the oil price. The other thing is on the demand side. So if the global economy is not as strong as a lot of people think it is, if the oil price keeps going higher to $90 a barrel, 95, maybe even 100, maybe even briefly over $100 a barrel, that would, on the demand side, not only would that potentially bring on more supply, but on the demand side, that could drastically cut demand. So consumer behavior could be drastically affected. I don't think consumer behavior in the United States is being drastically affected yet at current oil and gasoline prices. People are feeling some pain, but not like enormous levels of pain, where in most of the United States it's over $4 a gallon or $5 a gallon, as it was, I think, in 2007, before the 2008 financial crisis. The oil price, remember, for briefly got to way above $100 a barrel, to I think 139 briefly, 137, 139 briefly, and I paid for, I want to say, at least a couple weeks, maybe even a little over a month. It was $5 a gallon here in Northern Virginia. It was very high, nosebleed prices. And so everyone was feeling it. It was starting to really affect a lot of people at the margin. Okay, try to put your material on Steemit and get paid. Well, Steemit's in cryptocurrency, and so I could earn a little bit extra, but I mean, it's just going to be a little bit of crypto, plus right now crypto's falling. Although in the longer term, I think, you know, crypto at some point will have a rally. I'm not sure how many cryptos are going to rally, though. I think some people are going to give up on them. I don't know if they're going to go to zero, but I think some people are just going to give up on cryptos at some of the cryptos, not all of them. So a lot of the altcoins are in trouble. You know what's really funny, guys, is they're trying to go after me for the saying that my disclaimers on my YouTube channel were not enough. But look at all those crypto pumper YouTube channels that are out there. There's hundreds of them that were making like ridiculous crypto pumper videos. And I don't know if any of those guys got in trouble. But here they are going after me. And I'm interviewing respected guests. And I'm trying to educate you guys about how the global economy works, how to look at financial statements, all this different stuff. And, people are pumped. And there's people on CNBC and Bloomberg saying, Tesla's going to. There were even articles after the Elon Musk tweet, stupid ones from the mainstream financial media and regular financial websites, that $420 per share for Tesla is not enough money that Elon Musk should consider taking the company private. I kid you not. And no one's going to get in trouble for that. There's hundreds of new articles a day on Seeking Alpha there's good analysis on them. Some of them are pump jobs, and some of them are lying. Some of them are shorts and lying. But there's no disclaimers on any of those articles, and no one's getting in trouble there. It's ridiculous. I honestly, I can't believe what I had to go through the last 7 or 8 days, but thank God it's over for now. Miser, any high institutional holding oil stocks you like that may be undervalued? So, this is going to be, I interviewed Rob. Go back and listen to my interview with Robert Rapier. I worked with him in Investing Daily, over 20 years experience in the oil and gas industry at different jobs. He writes a very good oil and gas investing newsletter for Investing Daily. I don't think it's very cheap, but he also writes a lot of good free articles for Forbes and elsewhere. Go back and listen to that interview. And we discussed this. And he named a few of them. He actually talked about some master limited partnerships, but the problem, those are undervalued, I will agree. The problem with the master limited partnerships is the tax laws. So I can't buy something where if the market has already priced in some of these tax law problems, but if the tax laws are changing where the MLPs all have to switch over to C corporations, the government is forcing them to do so, they're going to have to take some really bad accounting charges for some of their investment stuff. And so you could see the charges that they take. There would be additional, more than 20% downside in these MLPs. They won't go bankrupt, but basically if you waited this out until they transitioned over to C corporations, you could be looking at big bargains afterwards with some of these pipeline MLPs. And pipeline MLPs don't take oil and gas production risks. They have long-term contracts. They're basically toll roads on the pipeline. So as long as they maintain the pipelines and there's not big leaks or spills and the pipelines aren't offline, an oil or natural gas pipeline company can make a lot of really solid cash flow. But I would wait personally, this is not financial advice, just my opinion. I would personally wait until there's more certainty on the tax laws. Now, obviously, if you took the risk now and you're right, and the tax laws do switch, and the tax laws do change, and the market has already priced that in, you can maybe get a lot higher, but I wouldn't take, you can maybe get, with good timing, you can make a lot more money, but I would wait. So I would rather more certainty on the tax laws there. The other thing is for the oil market, Miser, is that as long as these oil prices stay at these levels and or go higher, in my opinion, the deep water offshore drilling companies, your Transoceans, your Diamond Offshores, your FMC Technologies, which is symbol FTI, Frank Tommy Israel. Those companies are going to be booking lots and lots of deals. Maybe even Halliburton and Schlumberger. So those 5 or 6 companies, I think there's a couple other small ones, but they may have been consolidated, smaller, medium-sized ones that may have been consolidated. But those guys, as long as oil prices stay at these levels and or go higher, there will be, oil companies will start to, the larger integrated oil and gas companies or the exploration and production ones that specialize in deep water, they will start to bring on more deep water offshore oil and gas production and maybe hedge it or something like that at a profit. Okay, let me just take a swig of water and I'll look through more of your comments and try to answer them. We're at 40 minutes, so it's happy days for now. Temporarily happy, thank God. It seems that most of the stress from the last 8 days is behind me, so I will stay on here. I'm just going to take a swig of water and I'll look for more of your comments. Daniel Harshman, Audacity is an awesome audio editor and it's free. I'm aware of Audacity. I have it downloaded on my computer. I do not have the skills personally to do that. I have played around with it a little bit to learn. I honestly don't want to learn. I don't want to spend... So I want to stick to things that I'm passionate about, that I know a lot about, that I can learn more about. I want to stick to things I'm good at. I don't want to have to be a... What's the old saying that a jack of all trades is master of nothing? So I don't mind doing a little bit of edit. I do a little bit of editing on my short videos. So I've learned how to use Active Presenter and do some editing there. And then I do a little bit of editing on my shitty laptop. I wish I had money for a new laptop because my laptop's over 5 years old. I do a little bit of editing. Sorry, I got a little off tangent on Windows Movie Maker. So I am learning and getting pretty decent at editing on my short videos. But, you know, for the editing, for the longer interviews with the experts, I would honestly rather just, what's the right word? Outsource it. Outsource it to an expert who has expensive programs, who can do the work quickly, and, you know, an expert like that. Adam said, my friend Adam, who I've known for many, many years, you could just create a Roku channel to host on my you're gonna have to tell me, man, how to do the Roku stuff, because you know what, you're gonna have to explain it to a technology idiot. You're gonna have to tell me how to do that. Tom Kubik, do you think the dollar is going to be totally done in 2 years? I think they'll change the rules. I think everyone's going to change the rules. I think Trump and Mnuchin want a weaker dollar. They just want it, like Jim Rickard said, they want a controlled devaluation. So they, if the dollar index gets to 100 or 102, if it gets higher than that, it's going to do so much. And this is why I have the title with the dollar wrecking ball. If the dollar index gets above 100, above 102, it's going to do immense damage. There is over $20 trillion in dollar-denominated debt for emerging market foreign governments and emerging market central banks, and emerging market private sector debt. And we don't know the liabilities that the foreign central banks, the emerging market central banks have. Although there was a story a couple months ago, I was going to talk about this on the new Welcome to Dystopia episode I'm going to record with Phil Kennedy probably next week. There was a story about the Brazil Central Bank. There was a leak. One person in the Brazil Central Bank came out, whistleblower, and came out and leaked stuff to Bloomberg, the US, I believe. And the story got out that Brazil was doing all kinds of crazy games. They called it like synthetic currency swaps. And Brazil was just trying to figure out ways to not have their currency crash and buy time through the October elections. So they wouldn't be having like an Argentina or Venezuela problem with their currency before their October elections. So I'll attach a link to that story probably after I do the Welcome to Dystopia show with Phil next week. But that story is already in the Wall Street for Main Street Facebook group. if you want to take a look on that. But so occasionally there are whistleblowers that come out, and we do hear stuff about the currency swaps and the secret stuff that's being done. As you guys know, I've been talking about this for years. The European banking system has been on life support for years. And one of the main reasons that Mario Draghi did that whatever it takes speech and he started QE was it was a many $trillion covert bank bailout to delay bankruptcy of Deutsche Bank and the other banks. And that's why we didn't have a crisis sooner. And so, Tom, you're talking about the dollar being totally done. Well, the euro is a disaster too. And the yen is also a mess, although in the short term, the euro probably looks worse than the yen. And the Chinese RMB, China probably, to deal with this trade war, they may devalue the RMB even more. And if I was a Chinese citizen who had savings in RMB, I was a Chinese small business owner who had savings in RMB, I'd be pissed. If China was going to do devaluations and not tell me, I would not stick around and do nothing and just let them do that. I would be buying cryptocurrency. I would be getting on an airplane, which many Chinese have been doing for over a decade now. I've heard tons of anecdotal stories from my real estate contacts and friends about this, about affluent or middle class or upper middle class mainland Chinese getting on airplanes with briefcases or wiring money and, buying a property, sometimes buying a property sight unseen, or flying in, buying one or two properties, and then getting on an airplane within 24 hours. And they're drastically overpaying for the properties. But they want to get the money out of China. And so they're either protecting themselves against RMB devaluation, they're corrupt, maybe they've stolen the money from government contracts or something, or they're just some type of corrupt Chinese government official or a private sector Chinese business owner who had a government contract or something and was just laundering or stealing the money. Adam, King Dollar is hurting all commodities. I would agree with that somewhat, although I would say that, in my opinion, uranium is it's probably going to take a couple more years, but uranium is going to have the market just for uranium just does not make sense, and uranium was already in a bear market. The market that's gotten way ahead of itself, Adam, and this is because there was some good news out of China for a while, and also because, there was some good news about the global economy, was the copper market. There's been, over the last 4 or 5 years, way too much copper miners that have been brought online. There's many dozens of very marginal copper projects that were drilled off 8 to 10 years ago that were waiting for a rebound in the copper price after it crashed about 5 years ago. And so copper has rallied strongly for 4 or 5 years up until this year. And so from what I'm hearing, my sources are telling me, is that the copper miners are really starting to panic. So we'll see if the copper miners start to panic and or some of them go bankrupt and or copper mines shut down. That would actually be bullish for a silver supply, because you guys know my thesis on this. I'm the only one talking about this. I think if someone actually paid me like 20 grand to actually go and look through I'd have to look through tons of financial statements, tons of presentations and financial statements. It would be an enormous amount of work, going and looking through all the copper and base metal miners to try to get the exact amount of silver byproduct that's been online and try to get an estimate of some of the costs for the copper miners and the base metal miners. And at some point, so the first thing I think that a lot of, sorry, my mind's working at 1,000,000 miles a minute here. So the first thing that I think that these copper and base metal miners that will do that are in trouble, and normally these copper and base metal miners, if you're not familiar with that business, they hedge everything. So it's a very marginal business, even if it's a low-cost copper mine. A lot of copper and base metal miners, what they tend to do is they lock in hedges for at least a couple years on their primary metal production, so either copper or iron ore, other base metals, and then they also hedge all their byproducts, so gold or silver, platinum group metals, etc. And what I think will happen, this is just my opinion, not financial advice, what I think will happen with the copper and base metal miners is if copper and the other base metals do not rebound over the next couple quarters or year or so, that you will start to see, at first, you will start to see more copper and base metal miners that have not already sold gold and silver streams. You'll see them start to sell more gold and silver streams on their byproduct, perhaps all of their gold and silver streams, their current production plus future life of mine, for any cash to protect their balance sheets, to delay bankruptcy. So that will happen first. Okay, you'll see that first. I would look for news stories on that first. You've already seen, to a certain extent, some of that. You've seen some of that already immediately in the last, like, I don't know, couple months. Some of the larger royalty and streaming companies, your Wheaton Precious Metals and others, have been doing deals like crazy to clean up the balance sheets of some of the other base metal miners already. But if the copper, if the higher cost marginal, once those hedges are off, right, and if on a higher copper price and a higher silver price, if those higher cost copper and base metal miners, if their production does, in order for them to stay alive, they may have to sell off their mine. Or they might go bankrupt if no one wants to buy the higher cost copper and base metal miner. And then that would bring a lot of silver production offline. And there's a ton of marginal silver byproduct that's online annually. It may be over 200 million ounces that should not be online because the copper price, in my opinion, for years now was a lot higher than it should be. And that's because of artificial demand from China with their central planning. Their, One Belt, One Road, their infrastructure projects, all those Make Work Jobs program, which are fancier Keynesian ditch digging, and they were using and there's also games with copper and warehouses in China. Jonathan Whiting, payback loans, nobody does that. Well, small businesses have. If you're on Main Street and you're a small business, you have to pay back your loan. So if you're a large corporation or a bank or a government, some of them might be too big to fail, but there's restructurings and there's bankruptcies, man. There are restructurings and bankruptcies. Now, there's lawsuits and stuff like that over like what's technically a default and going through lawyers. There's international courts for countries for bankruptcies. There's hedge fund managers that do this stuff. I think Paul Draper is one of them. Okay, guys. Well, let's see. There's a couple more questions here. I've been ranting for a while now. I'm working on. Okay. Oh, Ben, you love my channel. Me and Peter Schiff are the best channels. Thank you, Ben. It means a lot to me. I put everything into this channel for the last 8 years. It's been a lot of hard work to improve and get better. I've learned along with you. When the investigators were researching me, they asked, when they were interrogating me, they're asking me, why did you start a channel? And I told them there was many reasons to start a podcast. I wanted to learn. I want to learn on my own. And I was figuring like, well, I'll share with you guys while I'm learning, interviewing these experts and learning on my own, reading books and learning from the experts I interview, I'll share it with you guys online. That was one of the reasons. There was a bunch of different reasons. The other ones were like overcoming my fear of public speaking. I was terrified for most of my life of public speaking. And I had social anxiety disorder and I used to stutter. I have none of that anymore. It took years for me to get confident to talk with you guys like this. Okay, single cell organism. Will dollar fall now? With an end in sight with trade wars, does that mean long metal futures? So I wouldn't be long. I wouldn't be long gold and silver yet. I would not be long futures contracts. Not financial advice, just my opinion. I would not be long gold and silver futures contracts. So at some point, gold and silver will have to rally. Maybe in the short term it goes a little bit lower, but it will have to rally. I would look on Twitter for the analysis that Fred Hickey has with the commitment of traders. I think I'll try to have Fred back on in a couple months. There's problems with doing my interviews starting on September 1st with Skype. They're blocking with the new Skype updates. They're not allowing you to go back to the Skype Classic. And my recording software, they're blocking all third-party recording programs on September 1st. So I'm going to have to get a new recording program for my podcast. I think maybe Zencaster. I think that's what I'm looking at. So what is that? Inside with trade wars? Well, I think the trade wars are going to keep going. I think the trade wars are going to keep going. Now, if the Democrats win back the midterm elections, they could put pressure on Trump, but I think Trump still wants to do it. China seems intent on keeping the trade wars going, and it seems China's main tool is devaluing the RMB, which will cause China problems. Too much inflation in China causes problems. China has already a lot of factories in China. The really cheap labor stuff has been leaving China for a couple years now, because wages, yes, they started off as slave labor and very cheap from a low base, but there has been, according to some estimates, over the last 10 or 15 years, a 500% increase in wages. And so a lot of factory workers, for the cheap manual labor, they have moved those factories out of China to Vietnam and Bangladesh and other places. And they're also, and you could see this in news stories too, Foxconn in China, they're automating. So with artificially cheap interest rates and higher workers' wages, I've talked about this in the past. So one of the best long-term trends that you can invest in if you're patient for 10, 15, 20 years or longer is robotics. The problem with investing in robotics, guys, is that there really are not many small to medium-sized robotics companies that have good revenue and earnings and are pure plays. So it's a lot of the large corporations where they only have like 10% or 20% of the revenues in robotics. And so there's no real good pure plays in robotics. And one of the major reasons because of that is because anytime there is a pretty good robotics company, it gets bought. Amazon paid, I want to say Amazon paid like 40 or 50 times revenue in 2013 for Dent. Dent was a really good factory robots manufacturer. They had they were featured on a 60 Minutes documentary. That stock in 2013, I think it was like $2 or $3 a share, and it went up to 16. So I was telling friends that I was like, wow, this Dent company has an amazing customers list when it was $2 or $3 a share. And they had all these, big name corporations as customers, and then Amazon just bought it up for $700 million when the market cap was 80 million, something like that. SoftBank, yes, SoftBank, but they're not a pure play in robotics. They do have a lot. Did SoftBank buy Boston Dynamics? Because I thought Google bought Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics I don't think they have government contracts, so I'm not sure if they publicly disclose what they make on those. But, the stuff that's being done, the stuff in the labs, guys, longer term, 10, 20 years out, the stuff in the labs, this is not profitable yet, but the stuff in the labs, innovation-wise, research and development, that's being done in the labs for 3D printing and robotics is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Okay, R.N. Rousseau, whose opinion do you respect more, Harry Dent or Peter Schiff? Both have a different opinion on the dollar. Okay, so I've followed both their work for a long time. I actually got woken up by Peter Schiff. So I was just I was reading value investing books, Warren Buffett books, Benjamin Graham books, Joel Greenblatt, who's a well-known value investor. I was reading those books before and after I was an investment advisor representative when I was learning, still, very early stages of my career in learning. And Peter Schiff woke me up. So I'm grateful for him for learning Austrian School Economics. I disagree with Peter Schiff about how good the situation China's going to be in with their manufacturing. I think there's problems in China with their Keynesian central planning. Harry Dent is wrong all the time. He's a broken clock. Harry Dent was talking about doubt, the track record. Harry Dent's a smart guy, first of all. Harry Dent's a smart guy. Harry Dent makes a lot of money on his newsletter selling fear porn. Very smart guy, but he's wrong all the time. He's been wrong basically for 20 or 30 years, and he was right maybe once or twice in that span. So I think Harry Dent's a smart guy. He's just wrong all the time. Peter Schiff, I like Peter. I think he's absolutely brilliant Austrian school economist, but he's way overexposed to gold stocks, especially the mining companies. In my opinion, the royalty, as long as gold and silver prices don't rally hard, the 5 largest precious metals royalty and streaming companies, they're gonna clean everyone out. Sandstorm Gold and Osisko Gold royalties are making enormous amounts of money. Not enormous. Well, they're doing deals long term that are going to make them tons and tons of money with juniors for royalties and other deals to eventually buy future streams with quality miners that are still drilling. What is your opinion on hot mod and potential capital control issues in the future? Okay, so I think the stock price for Sandstorm Gold has gotten hit really hard. It's a dramatic overreaction. Sandstorm Gold has been buying back shares with their free cash flow. I think it's an overreaction, in my opinion, with hot mod. And I think that Turkish citizens are going to continue to buy gold and Bitcoin. And I think, if anything, the Turkish government, what they might do, Turkish government's actually pro-mining. Email Sandstorm Gold investor relations and ask them how the Turkish government is pro-mining with the permitting. Sandstorm Gold is partnered with the developer on that hot mod mine, is one of the largest conglomerates. So they have a mining division. They're one of the largest corporations in Turkey. So I think if there's this could be a surprise scenario that I think that, if anything, this is not investment advice, just my opinion, that at some point the Turkish government, to get more gold, they could actually accelerate, fast track the permitting for hot maden, and instead of 2022, you could have hot maden online even sooner because they want the gold. They want to buy the gold from the mine. No one's talking about that. No one's talked about that. I think that's a possibility. Because I think Turkey may decide that, we're going to start diversifying our holdings, and they have already announced that they're buying gold, and then they're telling their citizens to buy gold. So I think that could happen. Sandstorm, people are not talking about this, but Sandstorm Gold is going to be really diversified. By the time Hot Maden Mine is online, if it does come online in 2022, they're going to have, in my opinion, at least 3 more deals for cash flow. So this company's maturing. They're entering their really nice growth phase starting in January. Their single largest source of revenue is going to be online in January. The Cerro Moro gold and silver mine, that mine's already online. Sandstorm Gold is just letting Yamana take all the revenues from the mine now because Yamana has a bad balance sheet, and Sandstorm Gold is being very prudent and smart, and they're letting Yamana take the revenue from the mine to pay back the capex, to pay back the debt on their balance sheet. And so once that silver stream's online and the Arizona royalty restarts, Sandstorm's going to have an additional 20% revenue to continue to diversify the business, do share buybacks if the share price is weak, with free cash flow, not with debt, and maybe even start a small dividend in the near future. So I think shareholders will be rewarded. Well, did you see, buy 100 ounces of silver? Did you see the new interview from Nolan Watson in the last couple weeks? It's in writing. Go to Sandstorm Gold's Twitter feed. And Nolan Watson disclosed that him and his wife own around $13 million worth of shares that they bought with their own money. So they've been buying the last couple years. When the stock price was low, they put more of their own money in. And he also said that the upper management team has been buying more shares with their own money, as well as the board of directors. And they've been doing share buybacks with free cash flow. So I really don't, the market, in my opinion, the market is overreacting to the Turkey news. The geology and the permitting stuff at the mine at Hot Maden is still outstanding, and I think the mine will still get built. What I would also tell you, buy 100 ounce silver, is that the same comments that are coming out about Turkey and Hot Maden, the exact same things were being said about Argentina 3 years ago and the Cerro Moro mine. So when Sandstorm Gold did that enormous deal, the largest one in the company history, with Yamana Gold to buy the copper stream, some silver streams, and then buy that massive stream, which is going to be the single largest source of revenue in company history on the Cerro Moro gold and silver mine, there were bears, there were people writing articles on Seeking Alpha that Sandstorm Gold was going to go bankrupt and that they were never going to see a dime from the Cerro Moro mine and the silver stream on there. And look at Argentina. Argentina survived their currency problems, and the mining sector in Argentina is actually really strong. So despite the currency problems in Argentina, there's still been, for years now, massive investments into Argentina in the mining industry. That mine is in a really well-respected district in the middle of nowhere where there's really nothing but mining. So that mine operationally, that thing could run over 10 years. Well, there's a 10-year reserve life on the mine right now, but I wouldn't be shocked. This is forward-looking and not investment advice, just my opinion. I wouldn't be shocked if the silver stream for Cerro Moro runs for way over 20 years, maybe even over 30 years, and throws off cash flow. Buy 100 ounce silver. What I would do is I would monitor the Sandstorm Gold Twitter feed, because all their interviews that disclose some of this stuff, either video or from mining publications, are all put on their Twitter feed. So follow Sandstorm Gold on Twitter. And I think Sandstorm Gold is committed to share buybacks with free cash flow. So, but if they do a deal in the short term for immediate cash flow, they will take a break on the share buybacks, but they can be flexible. So I think, the company's maturing. They have all this growth that's already paid for starting in January. And so it's really, the last couple of years for Sandstorm Gold, they had to do a transition, and it's been very painful. And Nolan Watson and his team did make a lot of mistakes years ago, but I think they've learned from them. And I think the company right now, especially in January, once the Cerro Moro gold and silver stream is online and the Arizona Gold royalty is restarted, I think the company will be in superb shape. Absolutely superb shape. Single cell organism. Big position in Boston Dynamics. Are you talking about SoftBank or are you talking about Google or Alphabet or whatever the hell their names are? Their name is now. U.S. Robotics. I'm not that familiar with U.S. Robotics. Is that a medical robot company? Because you have Intuitive Surgical, which is like a monopoly for the robotics, the Da Vinci machine. Guys, like, I've been here over an hour, and so I'm drinking water. I'll be here another couple minutes, answer a couple more questions. I really wasn't planning on going this long, but, you know, I'm kind of glad that I'm with you guys and talking about this. I am feeling better now, so it's kind of cathartic and kind of therapeutic to talk about some of the stuff that's happened the last 8 days, because it was unbelievably stressful. Well, I'll have to have Nolan Watson back on again in the near future. I've been kind of waiting to interview him again because, in my opinion, I think they'll probably do another deal in the next couple months. Maybe one more before the end of the year for cash flow. And then I think maybe I'll have Nolan on then. I don't have, any knowledge about any deals or anything like that, but from the conference call, it sounded like they were probably going to do one more deal for cash flow before the end of the year. But Sandstorm Gold, guys, they are buying. Things are so bad for the junior explorers that Sandstorm Gold buying private placements just to give some juniors a small amount of capital to do their drilling programs. Sandstorm Gold is buying royalties that are good for, even if the junior goes bankrupt, the royalty transfers. And those royalties are good for life. Not just the life of mine, they're on the land forever, so they transfer, and they're buying royalties now for $2 to $10 each on very large land packages with junior management teams that have well-respected geologists. So in the short term, this is not going to move the top and bottom lines for Sandstorm Gold, but in the long term, they're building, in my opinion, they're building something very special for years to come. Did buy 100-ounce silver? Did you see my short video that I did use Burack Gold as a case study, and they claim to be one of the lowest cost one of the lowest cost gold producers in the world? Did you see my case study from last month that I used for them? Jonathan Whiting. Well, I think there's an argument to be made with your new question that there has already been hyperinflation in asset prices. Asset prices, evaluations on bonds, on real estate in many areas, on stocks, on many regular stocks that have already been hyperinflated. So there's an argument to be made that asset prices have been hyperinflated. I do not think for consumer prices that politicians will allow hyperinflation. I think they will do really stupid wage and price controls. I think what they're hoping for is that they can do some type of managed controlled devaluation and keep things in a level of stagflation where most people won't notice. And I've been talking about, some of these anecdotal evidences with my own bills and what I'm noticing in the real economy. And guys, for a plate of like smoked chicken wings and like a big beer at like Hooters for what used to cost maybe like $15 or $20, it's $30 now. It's $30. So 10 years ago, or a little bit longer than that, it would have cost half the price. Now it's double. And there was one restaurant I used to eat at for Taco Tuesday about 5 or 6 years ago, and it used to be 3 tacos, 3 grilled chicken soft tacos for like $8, and now it's, I think, 2 chicken soft tacos for that price, and you don't even get rice and beans. So basically, from a food price perspective, you've been inflated 33% there because you're getting 33% less chicken soft tacos for the same price. And the government inflation statistics, whether you're in the US, Japan, Europe, none of those are covering this accurately. So everyone's standard of living is being squeezed. The Walmart news, if stagflation is worse, the US budget deficit blows out, if the dollar starts to weaken in the near future, then you're going to see worse stagflation increase, and it's going to become evident. So I think restaurants and retail has had a big rally for a little while now, but I think a lot of that is based off people that their stock prices are doing well, so they're spending money assuming that they can eventually sell their stock prices for a profit. And a lot of the U.S. government's tax revenues, the big increases that they've been promoting for their U.S. government tax revenue increases have been from capital gains, from stock trades. So the government is now very reliant for annual tax revenues on their stock trades, on people's stock trades, excuse me. Force majeure. Yeah, I mean, that's a possible scenario. That's a possible scenario. Didn't their stock market has already not been doing too well. I don't know if it's crashed yet, but it's had a lot more volatility than American stocks, and it has had some big corrections. Long term though, the Chinese technology companies, the large ones, are in very, very good shape. I've heard some crazy stories though about how immoral and like basically some of these large Chinese technology companies that make a ton of money are run like almost drug cartels. I've heard some crazy stories off the record, anecdotal stories from some mainland Chinese citizens about how crazy some of these Chinese technology companies are run and how they do business. I won't repeat them on the podcast. Let's just say that. I met this guy at a cryptocurrency conference, and he was from mainland China, and he was a crypto entrepreneur. And we were just like talking over some beers at a crypto conference, and he was telling me some really crazy stories about the Chinese technology companies and how they do business. But basically, there's a reason why like Uber, Facebook, Google, all the major American technology companies are struggling in China, is because the Chinese companies, like, they have the government protecting them. They can bend the rules. Did you hear the story about Uber and why Uber lost out in China and they just gave up and sold their business? It was because the competitor to Uber in China, what happened was the company in Uber in China, the Chinese version of Uber in, I'm not sure the name, the Chinese version of Uber in China, they literally gave away free rides for a couple weeks or a month, and they basically made sure Uber didn't have a chance. So they built their network, giving people, download the app, get 10 free rides. And so they built out their network that way, and then Uber didn't have a chance because Uber couldn't give all the mainland Chinese in big cities 10 free rides. So they just gave up. So the negative interest rates, in my opinion, is it OORPHB? Negative interest rates, in my opinion, are a Keynesian academic. They're just a wet dream. They won't work in reality. They can't. Real negative interest in Europe. Now, I know in Europe they had something along those lines, but in the US, if they did that, there would probably be a revolt. So if they did go to NIRP, negative interest rate, and start fining people, I think there would be a revolt. I think small business owners and stuff and people running medium and large size American businesses, there would be huge complaints. So I think negative interest rates is just mostly an academic central banker, an academic Keynesian economist. It's just something that they have in theory. So in reality, the stuff can't be implemented, but they talk about it and they teach this stuff, and a lot of those people are statists anyway. They're not for free markets or anything like that. So they just want more totalitarian government and control. Okay, guys. Well, we're way over, so maybe I'll answer one more question. That's it. James Farrell asks, as economy as the asset bubble deflates. Well, I think there's already evidence, James, that the real economy in the U.S. is not as good as it appears. So I think a lot of middle class people, their discretionary income, unless they've been a benefit to some of these Trump tax cuts, which may only be temporary, or they've gotten some wage increases, that their cost of living, even though they've gotten some wage increases, their costs are going to start to go up. Their oil and gas costs are going to go up. Their food costs are going to go up. Their property taxes are going to go up. Do you get the point I'm making? So even though their salary may have increased because of the Trump tax cuts or some other reason, that their bills, their property taxes, depending upon where they live, their food costs, their energy costs, those things are going to start to go up. And that, in my opinion, with the thesis I have, is why stagflation will get worse, and also that restaurants and retail in the next couple of years, in the United States are not going to do very well, especially the casual dining sit-down restaurants around here for middle class. I'm not a Europe expert, James. I'm not a Europe expert. I think the European people are, I don't think they're as libertarian, and I think the stuff that they do protest is not the same things that American people protest. Although there are more American Democrats now that want to be like Europe, but there's still a lot of Americans here that are either proud American nationalists, I guess you would call them, that are pro-American, and also like limited government libertarians or anarcho-capitalists. I don't think there's nearly as many of those types of people in Europe. So I think that makes a big difference. And I think, in a lot of other countries in Europe, a politician similar to Trump probably could not be electable. But we're going to have to see. So if I'm right about the thesis I've talked about for a while now, things are escalating in a lot of different countries, even the U.S., towards an ideological civil war with a lot of violence. I hope I'm wrong about that. I used to go on dates with Democrat women in college. They were fine. We didn't have a problem. Nowadays, a lot of them, the scary part is, a lot of them, they fucking, some of them, not all of them, some of them, like anyone who disagrees with them, not only do they not want to talk to them, some of them want men like me dead. It's getting scary out there. It's getting very scary out there. It's getting very scary. People are, not everyone's radical, but the stuff that the increase in people who are becoming radical is very, very scary. I do not remember nearly the amount of radicals when I was in college and when I was younger, and even a couple years after college. So the last 8 to 10 years, especially in the DC metro area, and from what I'm hearing, a lot of other major cities, the amount of radicals, especially like Marxists and hardcore Democrats who hate capitalism and love socialism and are very hardcore Marxists, the amount of radicals has really, really increased. Okay, guys, well, we're way over an hour. My throat is hurting me. I'm very tired. Do you guys like this format? Should I try to do this more often? Maybe on a Friday or something and pull out a beer? And we can do some stuff like this, and you guys can meet me maybe once or twice a month on Fridays. After work and stuff, we can maybe meet for a beer here. Okay, guys, well, that's it for right now. I'm wrap the show up. So, the title, the reason, I obviously went on the rant here with my personal story that I want to share with you guys, because I just feel better about discussing this publicly now and all the stuff I had to go through. Thank God I don't have to hire a lawyer. What's funny is I don't think any of the lawyers would have around here, even though I emailed over 2 dozen of them, a lot of them weren't going to take my case. They either thought it was ridiculous or laughable, or they thought I wouldn't be able to pay them thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees. And so I would have had to raise a legal defense fund and do an enormous media blitz on a bunch of well-known alt media platforms just to raise the money for a legal defense, just to keep my YouTube channel so all the videos wouldn't be taken down. Okay, guys, well, that's it for right now. So monitor, if I could summarize the economics portion of this little live stream, it was just watch the dollar index. So have the dollar index bookmarked. Watch the dollar index and see what happens to it. I think it's being managed in a trading range, but if it breaks loose and gets above 100 or above 102, it is a wrecking ball, and it's going to do even more damage to the global economy. That's it for right now, guys. I need to take a break. I need some more water, and I'm going to think about some dinner plans for the rest of my weekend. And tomorrow morning I have to get up very early because the Ron Paul Institute conference is tomorrow. So if I do see some of you guys there tomorrow in Northern Virginia at the Dulles Airport Marriott for the Ron Paul Institute conference, say hi.